And I'm also doing a movie of this, so that'll all be there. So you don't need to take notes. What I'm wanting you to learn is what the parts are, how things are worked, what your choices are. If you're DIY, you can actually do some of this DIY. So it's pursuing choices and knowledge. There are different systems, candles and oil. We'll look at UPS, we'll look at grid-tie battery, we'll look at grid-tie solar, we'll look at itty-bitty solar, we'll look at off-the-grid solar, we'll look at hydro and its capabilities too. One of my favorite is the old-fashioned. I mean, I lived in a solar house on the beach. Oh, I met my wife because I installed solar at her house on the beach. That's how I met Lorraine. But we lived for a while in a house without any solar or any alternate power. And this was one of our favorite things to use. You can get the oil for this at Do It Center with citronella in it. It gives a beautiful romantic lighting and keeps the bugs away. So I love that. Nowadays, there's really a lot of stuff available. This is $19 from Amazon. It goes in different colors. It has a Bluetooth speaker built into it. It leaves a little red light you can't see now, always on at night. These are lights. So these are things available now that you could buy. Floor lamps, table lamps, ceiling lamps, all of these can be purchased. And they run on power, but they have their own batteries in them. So when the power goes out, the light just keeps running. So it's an option. We do have to do one term quickly now, but we'll get to terms later on. We need to do watts. And watts are how much energy you use. It's how you're billed from the power company. If you look at your bill from the power company, it has how many watts you use every month. You can add up 12 months, divide it by 365, and measure approximate use in a day. So knowing a little about watts helps you to pick what system and the size of system that you want. We'll come back to that more. One of the oldest and most common is an uninterrupted power supply, UPS. And in the old days, there used to be NiCad batteries in them, and they had a pretty short life on them, and they didn't last very long. The new ones with lithium batteries in them are actually pretty good. I had old ones that beeped and I couldn't turn the beep off. It drove me crazy, so I finally got rid of them. But even now that they beep, and thus you know your power went out, and you can shut the beep off, so you don't have to listen to that. Uninterrupted power supply systems comes from itty-bitty small ones to great big huge ones. So you run a whole house kind of think on one of them. Generators are the next most common thing used in Cherokee to power houses when the power goes out. The selection in generators is quite large, and generators are inexpensive. They can be set up to be automatic, or they can be set up to be sort of semi-manual. This is a dual fuel Champion generator. I actually bought this generator at PriceSmart for $1,000 years ago. I really liked it because I was surprised at Champion. I called them because things wore out, but after the warranty, I said, I need to order this part. And oh, you have one? And I talked to the guy, and he says, okay, I'm sending it. I said, you need my credit card? He said, no, we're just sending it to you. So their support was incredible. There is a thing called an inverter generator. An inverter generator uses less gasoline, less fuel, because it's very efficient. I have not ever seen them in Panama. There are whole house generators like this Kohler generator. The Kohler generator is, there's a company selling a special on them right now for $6,100. It's 20 kilowatts, enough to run your house and your neighbor's house. But if you had one for your house, it'll mostly idle. And the nice thing about these is they can be set up so that they're total automatic. When the power goes out, the generator senses it, it starts itself, warms up for 15 or 20 seconds, and switches the power back on in your house. When the power comes back on, the generator shuts down, cools down, and then shuts itself off. So you only need to do oil and gas changes, and it's pretty maintenance-free. This is another form of generator called hydrogen. They don't have them in Panama either, but it's pretty cool that they have it because it's a very ecological generator. It uses hydrogen gas to run, so pretty good on the ecology. These are new and they're solar generators, and I think they're becoming one of my favorite things. They're available on Amazon for $200 to $300 with solar panels. What you can do with them is have a couple and have one run your refrigerator and freezer and have another one run your TV and computer equipment and stuff like that. So then, you do have to do a little work when the power goes out. You've got to get the generator, plug everything into it, and turn the generator on. And when the power comes back, you need to take and put your panels out in the sun. If the power's out during the daytime, you can put the panels out in the sun, have the generator inside, and have continuous power. A simple generator system that has a transfer switch. If you have a transfer switch, it allows you to run your whole house off of the generator. So what a transfer switch does is it lets the power come in from the power company to the transfer switch and go to your panel in your house and thus to your house. Or if you throw the switch, it lets the power come from the generator into the transfer into your whole house. You have to have that if you're going to go directly into your panel, because if you didn't, first off, the power would fry your generator, and second off, if you turn your generator on, it would try to supply electricity to the whole neighborhood through the power company, so it isn't going to work. So that's the need of a transfer switch. All of the remaining systems that are available to us have common parts, and they can have some of these parts or all of them. The first one is an inverter, and it converts DC to AC. We'll talk about DC, AC more later on, but DC current is direct current. It's what your car battery is. AC current is what comes over the power lines. The reason for the difference between the two is DC can be stored, i.e. in the battery in your car. AC can't. Only AC can be stored in a capacitor, which is very short, brief amount of time. Batteries store DC. Chargers can be connected into the grid and charge your batteries for that, or they can be solar chargers. And the charger converts AC to DC, or in a solar charger, it takes the DC from the solar panels and moderates it to charge your batteries efficiently and drop the voltage down to correct voltage. Oh yeah, that's what a solar controller does. Oops, okay, that was dyslexia, I got me there. BMS systems are new. They're battery management systems. They work with lithium batteries. BMS systems, lithium is kind of on it's going in growth styles. Some lithium batteries, a friend of mine says, are made in China, and they're made by 9-year-olds in the back alley in Shanghai. They're put together and sent here really cheap. Some are very expensive. The one thing is that there is no standard for battery management systems. So there's good ones and there's bad ones, and you need to investigate that if you're looking at lithium, what you're getting as far as your battery management system goes. And then monitoring devices, and the monitoring devices can be a cell phone now. A lot of the systems are really easy. In the past, it was really complicated. You had to have these things that was very confusing. These are pictures of just a basic system. So this is no recommendation in here. It's just kind of how the parts go together. So a really simple battery system that would be off the grid would have, again, a transfer switch. Power would come to a charger. The charger would charge the batteries. When the power goes out, the transfer switch would have to be thrown, and that would put the power into the inverter into the transfer switch, and back to your house. And if you have a bigger solar system, the inverter takes care of the transfer switch automatically. You're actually running your house on that inverter all the time. There are different levels of solar system. We're going to look at grid tie with batteries, no batteries, off grid, and the generator. The parts of all solar systems are pretty basic. They have solar panels, and the solar panels are connected to some kind of a charge controller. And the charge controller is connected to the batteries. There also is an inverter that can be a charger, so it could be tied to the grid. That's not shown in this picture, so it can charge the batteries also. And the inverter converts the stored energy in the batteries to AC, which goes to your fuse box and powers everything in your house. A small solar system is kind of like what we just saw with the battery system. It has all the same parts. but it has a solar panel, a small charger. By the way, the numbers for dollars on here are actually fairly old. I did this talk in 2012. So some of these are 2012, some of them I've updated, but and I also did it at Burning Man, which was interesting, in 2015, and they don't have power in Burning Man, so I made 7 by, I printed it out, it's the big one, 17 by 22 pieces of paper, and had people hold up these slides around the crowd. We got a fairly big crowd. So again, the part, solar controller, charges the batteries, power goes out, goes to the inverter, transfer switch sends it to the house, or if power is coming in, the house can live off of, oops, I'm sorry. That was a finger that twitched. There are sometimes, from time to time, simple systems available at PriceSmart, sometimes at Do It Center, which have a few panels in them, an inverter, and some cables and a battery, and you can use them to be part of your house. Now, in doing research, there now is available micro inverters and micro chargers. So some people I saw on YouTube, one guy is a gamer, and he can't stand to have his computer or his gaming TV go out when the power goes out because he could be in the middle of a game. So he bought one solar panel, put it on his roof, connected the solar panel to one lithium battery, connected that to a micro inverter, connected that to his computer and his TV, and he's better out without power, and they never get plugged in, because both of those devices use very little power. Grid tie solar is where we get a little more sophisticated. You'll notice that this has no transfer switch. The transfer switch is contained in the inverter. The solar panels go into a disconnect, go into a solar controller, go to the batteries. You have disconnect between the batteries and your inverter. Those are just big giant circuit breakers is what they are. Oops, sorry. Giant circuit breakers, and when the power goes out, you're automatically using the battery. Grid tie you can set, so, and they're not actually used very much here in Panama because you can't sell back to Manatee, so you can't sell. But grid tie are used where you take power off of the grid, and when you have a lot of power, you can feed it. But when you have a lot of sun and solar, you feed it back into the grid, and it runs your meter backwards. So you kind of have a combo solar system, a combo grid system. Grid type micro solar, you might have friends in the States who have these. They're really not, I don't think they're really cool, because when the power goes out still. A grid type micro system, they sold them for tax advantages, and they put a teeny micro controller on each panel. So each panel has a microcontroller, and that goes into your house and runs your house. You have a transfer switch for it, and you get to monitor it, but they require power to excite the solar. So they're continually feeding to the grid, and if the power goes out, they don't generate any power. So all the power in your house goes out. Off-grid solar is common here. And off-grid solar is you don't have any tie to the grid. It again has the same part, solar panels, disconnects circuit breakers, goes to solar controller, goes to batteries, goes through circuit breakers to a large inverter. The inverter can be an inverter charger, and the charger in this case, if you need extra power, comes from a generator. And then there are monitoring systems for it that goes into your house. So that's an off-grid full solar system. You can add hydro. I had hydro at Rancho de Caldera. I had 4 generators there, and it worked pretty good. We had a stream that ran a lot in the winter and a little less in the summer. So the solar panels took care of the system in there were 70 solar panels and 3 hydro generators. The solar took care of the system in the summer when it's sunny all the time, and in the rain, the hydro helped the solar so that the system is handled by hydro. For hydro to work, you need to have a couple of things. You need to have a water supply, and you either need a lot of pressure and medium volume, or a lot of volume and low pressure. And there now even I saw some things coming from Japan that you can use actually in a low pressure, like I have a little vanishing edge pool that I created at my house for the kids to swim in. I could actually put it in there, and the water coming across that would turn this enough flow to provide a little bit of power. Or you have pressure. At Rancho, I had pressure. I had almost 100 pounds of pressure when it got down to the bottom of the hill. It was a steep hill. You need to have a trash rack of some kind. This is one that's made for $1,800, but the water comes across the top and drops in through this specially made grill here, down into your pipes and goes to your hydro, down to your generator, and then the water washes any trash or debris off the top of the grill as the grill catches it. So it's self-cleaning. At Rancho, I just used a huge long pipe with a screen along the side of it, so the water would by it all the time and clean the pipe off. That goes into generators. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go backward. Yeah, backward. No. These generators aren't made anymore. That's what I used at Rancho. It was a guy in Canada, in Newfoundland. They're fixed magnet generators. They are making fixed magnet generators now from different companies, so you have to search for it on Amazon. Or they're doing generators that actually are like a car generator, and the turbine turns that car generator, and then that. When you have a hydro system, you do have to have a dump controller. This is the dump controller here, because solar panels, you can short them out. And so they could be shorted out, they just don't make any more power. So they can be controlled. The solar controller, when it has enough power, it just dampens the panels down by shorting your panels out. It doesn't hurt them. But you can't do that with a generator, hydro type of generator. So if you don't need the power, you have to get rid of it. Some people with hydro get rid of it via a hot water heater or a sauna or a pool heater in their pool. And so when they don't need the power, it dumps into that. Or you could just buy a device like this, which is a dump controller, and it dumps it into the fans of that. It's like a huge heater, so it provides heat. You can add wind, but in Cherokee, wind isn't practical at all. Yes, we have a lot of wind, but it's usually from 10 to 3. And for wind to be efficient, it needs to be 24 hours. It needs to be 7 to 10 miles an hour or more. And it's best if it's single direction. And that makes wind work. But wind here, it isn't viable. This kind of wind generator here, actually tried one at Rancho, and it got destroyed in about 3 months because the wind here not only, is variable, but it comes from different directions, varying all the time, so it just raveled itself apart. They've fixed that problem by creating various different wind generators like this. It doesn't care which direction the wind comes from, it just turns. So that would solve that problem. So like if you live in Panama, Maine, where there's wind coming across, you could have this kind of generator in your house that would work fine. Tesla was the first one to come up with lithium batteries. Back in 2010 or something, they had their Powerwall, and it was, it was combined with their cars, so you could solar run the Powerwall and charge your car from it, or run your whole house from it. Tesla still does have the Powerwall now. Currently, I understand from a friend that you can't buy it, even though they advertise the Powerwall for sale, which is lithium batteries, the controllers, all of the things you need for it to work, but you can't buy it without solar panels. So it becomes pretty prohibitive to ship here. Okay, so now we need to learn a little about electricity for a lot of this to be able to put together to make sense for you. I'm going to try to explain watts, amps, volts, AC, DC. You'll need to learn these terms because if you're going to do a solar system in your house, you're becoming a power company. You're actually now a utility company for your own house, and you've got yourself as the CEO of your utility company, and you need to know a little bit of it, a little about it. It isn't, you can't be really totally turnkey. Well, it can sort of be turnkey because you can hire somebody else to come in and check your system all the time. Amps. So if we think of water and water pipes, it actually has a pretty cool analogy to electricity. So if we have a little small water pipe and we put water through that pipe, we get a certain amount of water coming out. We could fill a bucket with it. If we make the water pipe bigger, we get more water coming out of it. That basically is amps. So amps are the flow. And you can see amps in your house because it's what your circuit breakers in the house are. The circuit breakers are monitoring the flow of energy through them. And if it surpasses what the wires, i.e. the water pipe, can handle, it trips it off. Volts are the pressure. So you have your water pipe, and if you put a lot of volts in your pipe, the water goes way far. If you have a big water pipe with a lot of amps in it and put a lot of volts in there, you get a really lot of water, a huge volume. Your bucket fills up really, really quickly. Watts are the measure of electricity. So in the water situation, the bucket full of water is watts. So when you fill the bucket up, your bucket is 1 watt of thing in the water analogy. So if you have more volts and more amps, your bucket fills quicker, but it's still the same amount of water in the bucket, so you've got a lot more buckets. Mathematical formulas can be used. So watts equals amps times volts, and amps equal watts divided by volts, and 1 watt equals 1 amp. 1 watt equals 1 amp times 1 volt. So to design a system, we need to calculate how many watts we use. We need to know the quantity of what we need to use. We have AC/DC, and that's alternating current and direct current. Thomas Edison did direct current, but direct current doesn't work very well for transmitting around the houses at all, because it can't be changed in state. It can't go through a transformer and change. AC current is alternating current that's what's in your house. That's negative, positive in 60 cycles or 50 cycle hertz is called, pattern of on and off. And that alternating current can change its voltage really easily. And this is really important because a power company generates power. Then they take that AC current that they generate and they increase the voltage on it up to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 volts. And that goes into high tension lines that deliver the power to your neighborhood. That comes off of the high tension lines back to transformers that go to a little less volts, usually about 440. And that comes down the street to your house, and you'll have a transformer by your house somewhere, or in your neighborhood, a small one on a telephone pole, and that reduces it from 440 to 220. And the 220 comes into your house, and it's split. 220 and 120 voltage is that you have 2 lines coming into your house. Both of them are 110. Together, they're 220. Your panel in your house is split so that all of the circuit breakers are alternating on each side of the 2 lines coming in. That's to help balance the load in your house. You had a really good electrician who would have paid attention to how they did that. So they put things that use a lot of electricity, so they're spread out between L1 and L2. One more term, And that is sine wave. And what sine wave is, a lot of inverters, the really inexpensive ones you can buy at PriceSmart for $20 or $100, some are even a little more expensive than that, are, well, you'll see that they're modified sine wave. And a modified sine wave is like this, it's square. So the cycles are up and down. So every 60 cycles it does a square wave. That works for some things, but not very good for motors. Some refrigerators won't even run off of a modified sine wave. Sine wave, if you have a radio that you're using, makes a lot of noise in the electronics for the radio. A modified sine wave is terrific for computers or other things that take the electricity and convert it to AC. A pure sine wave is a nice gentle curve, and pure sine wave inverters cost more than modified sine wave inverters because they're more expensive to manufacture to get a pure sine wave. How big of a system do you need to run a house? Now that's interesting, you know, that huge generators that a lot of people put in, you don't need that to run a house. My rental house has a 4,500 watt, $400 generator that I bought at PriceSmart. It works just fine because the tenants living there know not to run the microwave and the water pump at the same time. So they manage their usage of the electricity, and that makes it so the small generator works. A large generator is absolutely needed if you have a lot of water features. So if you've got a swimming pool that needs to run its pump, if you have water fountains and you have other water stuff, those motors use a lot of electricity. When you see a rating on a device, especially a motor, it'll say this uses 1,200 watts. But if you look at it closely, it uses that to start because it needs a lot of power to get going. But once it's going, the usage drops way down. If you have a table saw, you can see that. Your table saw takes a lot of power to get going. And if you put wood in it and bind it, you really drag the motor down, so then it's using a lot of power. But motors that are like just for a water pump use a lot of power to start, and then they're constant. So you can't just run through your house and totally add up everything by the rated voltage on the device. You need to look at what it actually really uses. This is a spreadsheet that'll be available if you're interested. It lists all of the common things you have. You can put in how many volts the device uses, what the ampere hours is, how many watts that is, and how much time, and it calculates out for you automatically how much power you're going to use, and goes on down to size the batteries, size the array, everything like that. So if you're interested, it'll be on the website, and you can pick it up. Electrical consumption is interesting. I just put this in because it's kind of, we're talking about how much do you use in your house. The world uses 69 terawatts. Terawatt is 1 trillion watts. I wrote it out here. So that's 68 trillion watts modified. The United States in one day, this is in one day it uses, the United States in one day uses 11 terawatts. That's 11 billion kilowatts. And then in Panama, we use 20.8 gigawatts, which is 20 million, 800 and some thousand kilowatts. So you see, we're not using a lot of electricity in Panama. At my house, I use 19 kilowatts in one day. So that's what I use in one day. Batteries. So batteries have come a long way, especially with lithium, and even now with this possibility of salt. So the old standard battery was a flooded lead acid battery. That's what you have in your car, a flooded lead acid battery. The battery in your car doesn't work for using in a solar or a house system. The reason for that is the construction of the battery. The car needs a huge amount of power to start, but it doesn't need it for a very long time. So the lead plates in the car are basically like a waffle, and they have a lot of surface so that the sulfuric acid can react with the lead to generate electric ions to start your car up, there's a huge surface in there. For solar, that doesn't work because you want power over a long period of time, and a battery that can produce a lot of power can't do it well over a long period of time. There are marine batteries, which are kind of a hybrid for a boat, where the boat needs power to run the lights inside and also power to start. And they're kind of halfway between. They're also not very good for solar for your house, but you'll see the marine batteries like sold at PriceSmart. You'll see them sold there. Absorbed glass mat batteries, or AGM. Flooded lead acid batteries have to be watered. You need to water your batteries every month. You could have automatic waterers have it, or you could have your wife who sees well water the batteries for you. But they need to be watered once a month to keep the water level. If the water evaporates when the batteries charge, the sulfuric acid comes off of the plates, the lead plates, and it makes bubbles and evaporates the water. When power is used, sulfuric acid tends to phosphate on the lead plates and starts to block them. And if air gets to those lead plates, it fries the battery. Absorbed glass mat and gel cell batteries are batteries that don't need maintenance. They're kind of permanent. The battery in your car mostly doesn't need maintenance either. They say that they don't need it. A lot of times, though, the water will eventually run out of your car. The reason you don't need it in your car a lot is you're not running a lot of stuff off of the battery in your car. Your alternator, only when you start the car, are you hitting the battery. The rest of the time, the battery is charged and the generator is providing all of the electricity used in the car. Absorbed glass mats don't need to be watered. Gel cell also didn't need to be watered, but gel cell is going out of popularity just because it's expensive, it has slower charge rate, it's impractical kind of to use. We still occasionally buy them. Then there were saltwater batteries, of which Bill Gates actually invested fairly well in the company of Aqueon. Saltwater batteries came out, and they're really pretty cool. You get huge discharge on them. You can back up a little bit. Leaded flood acid batteries don't like to be discharged. You discharge them all the way down and kill them. In fact, to keep to give a long life to a flooded lead acid battery, you only want to use the top 20 or 30% of the battery. So you only want to take it from 100% down to 70%. That's not true with lithium. You can go down further. Absorbed glass mat's the same thing. Salt water is a lot like lithium. It could be taken all the way down. The only problem with salt water was that their price tag was $16,000. Well, you could buy a lot of battery for $16,000. However, in doing this talk and my research and stuff, I found an article that they are now taking salt, which lithium is salt, by the way. They're now taking salt and figuring out a way to make a lithium-type battery out of just salt, which would be great for the environment and hopefully much less expensive than these. This system went out of business just because it was too expensive to use. Charging lead-acid batteries, we've got a charge system you have to do, which is bulk, which is taking the batteries up to a higher voltage and holding them there in what's called an absorb time for a period of time, and then after that, dropping it back down to a float charge. And the float charge finishes off charging the lead battery. Float is lower voltage. This is just a chart to show what typical voltages are for a system. I use 58 volts for my 48 volt system. I float, I absorb at 58. You absorb and your volt charge are the same. And then I float charge mine at 54. And there is also, there's also an equalizing charge. And you have to, once every month or 2 months with a lead acid system, equalize the batteries. And that's take them to very high voltage so that the phosphate burns off of the lead cells, and they become more or less equal to each other. And that provides more efficiency to your system. Lithium batteries. This is a lithium field. Lithium is a salt. This field is in Chile. Chile is a huge supplier of lithium. There's an underground source of water that has a lot of lithium in it. It's brought up to the surface and it's allowed to evaporate. These fields that are the pretty color are close to being ready to have the salt collected off of them. Lithium by itself can't work, so lithium has to be combined with some other elements to be able to make it work. Some of the first ones were combined with cobalt, but those batteries had a tendency to burn up a lot. Remember all of the burning batteries? All lithium batteries can burn up because they can run out of temperature. But the most common now type of lithium battery is iron phosphate. You'll see Leaf Pro advertising it. They're the safest. They have a long life. They're pretty durable. They're a little better environmentally because they don't use cobalt or titanium or nickel, which are also hard to combine elements. Magnesium oxide batteries are used in, most common is your electric drill. Your battery-powered drill uses batteries from magnesium oxide. It's expensive, so it's not used too much in EVs, but some electric vehicles, EVs or electric vehicles, do use them. Lithium, nickel, magnesium, cobalt is nice to use. It's used a lot in power bikes and scooters and also some in EVs. Lithium, nickel, cobalt is a little less expensive to manufacture, and it's Tesla's favorite lithium to use in their batteries. And then lithium titanate has titanium in it, and it's used by the military, and they're very expensive. They're great temperature ranges. They have good capacity, they're safe, and they're expensive. If you go on Amazon, you'll see interesting things. Like you see this Solar Queen 12-volt lithium battery, 100 ampere hours. That means that the ampere hours are also used as the number of amps that we can get on a 20 draw over 20-hour period. So this battery over a period of time can deliver 100 ampere hours. In lead acid, my house has 440 ampere hours of batteries on it, but I can only use the top part of that. I can only use the top 150 or so are actually Kirkland batteries. So this is only $229 on Amazon. This is a Victron 12-volt battery. It's the same voltage as the Solar Queen. It's almost $1,000 for a 100 ampere hour battery. This is SOX battery. This is a 48-volt one, but SOX batteries individually are in the 290 range. I should have had that on here. If I have to use this is just personal opinion, so I'll provide my opinion. But if I have to use a battery currently from the research, I would choose a SOX. The reason I like the SOX battery is that it's totally, you can disassemble the whole thing. So that, first off, the BMS, the battery management system in it is a really good one. You can tell a good one because it has both heat and cold, which isn't a problem. Well, the heat here is a problem, but the cold isn't a problem. The lithium batteries don't like to be hot in hot temperature, and the lithium batteries don't work well in cold. In fact, if you live in Minnesota or someplace in the north, you need to use lithium batteries. You actually need to get lithium batteries with a heater in them. So they heat the battery up so that it can function in the cold weather that they get there. So SOX has a display panel on it. The price is very reasonable on it. The single SOX batteries are less expensive if I chained them together. So I could buy 12-volt ones, put 4 of those together, and I'd have a 48-volt system. That would work, and the problem with that is that I would have to manage the system and the batteries independently. So occasionally I'd almost have to do like I equalize with my lead acid batteries. I'd have to see that each battery is functioning at its peak, and if not, we have to charge it over a long period of time to get the lithium to come to its peak, and so I'm without power for a long time. Using a combined system where the 48 volts have been put together by the manufacturer, their BMS does that. So it monitors all of the batteries and makes all of the batteries in the system work equally with each other. This is LiTime. It's another popular one. It's fairly good. A thing that I found that's pretty interesting is on YouTube, I could go in and there are sites that actually take all of these batteries apart and look at how they're made, what they've got in it, what the BMS system looks like. And you know, I don't know if the reviewers doing that are getting paid by the battery companies, or we did see one reviewer who said, you know, I got this battery, but I read in other reviews that it had a better battery in it. And apparently what the company was doing was putting up some batteries with more expensive cells and then dropping the quality of the cell down for later on. So they got good reviews in the beginning and then started selling them not so good. So the lithium world has the people charging too much money, in my opinion, and the 10-year-old kids working in Shanghai alleys putting batteries together and letting other companies just label the batteries. Lithium charge curve is very different than what we saw for lead acid batteries. Lithium is a straight line charge. So lithium can go almost to zero, and you can almost go to full charge. What lithium battery manufacturers recommend is that you work in this range between the two curves. So the red line is the battery voltage and the blue discharge, and the blue line is the battery current. This is just a chart of that voltage for a 48 volt system for state of charge. So lithium do have a bulk charge where you put the amount of power into the battery that the manufacturer recommends, bring it up to that point and absorb for 2 hours, usually 2 hours. And then you usually don't float a lithium battery, which means that when you've got your battery fully charged, it shuts off, and you're now using battery power in the daytime to supply your house. Chargers come in many different forms. These are battery chargers that you can purchase here in David. This is the 3-stage, which means flooded lead acid battery. It does bulk, absorb, and float. This is a 2-stage, which is available in David. It does absorb, and it does bulk and absorb. And this is Bluetooth accessible. You can read it from your phone, charges everything. So it has unlimited, it can do lithium, it can do other things. And it's an expensive charger, but very nice charger. It's from Victron. Solar charge controllers. I like personally Outback stuff. I currently am using an Outback solar charger in my house and a Xantrex inverter. I like the Outback stuff better. I got the Xantrex because there was a deal on it. I'm trying to wish I hadn't done that. But the Xantrex is working fine. Outback equipment talks to each other nice, but a lot of new companies like Victron, and there's also SolarArc, are companies coming out with equipment that talks to each other. Some of them are using a different method of engineering to convert the power, not so much huge transformers like Outback uses, but other electronics. And then there's itty-bitty solar charge controllers, you know, little ones that you can use that are inexpensive to do the little microsystems. Inverters and chargers, this is the Xantrex system, very similar to what I'm using now. This is Outback, one of their older systems. This is a Victron system. This system is everything. So it has the solar controller in it, it has a charger in it, and it has the inverter in it. These two systems have chargers and inverters in them. This is one of the little modified sine wave, inexpensive inverters that you can get, you know, like to plug into your car battery to do some power off of that. This is the SolarArc inverter. It's very similar to the Victron inverter. It has everything in it. Monitors and controllers, Xantrex has this one, Outback has this. Outback hubs everything. Xantrex does that too. Outback has now added the ability to have it on your cell phone, so you can see it over the Wi-Fi. Almost everybody else now has the monitoring systems are via applications on the cell phone, as well as a digital display. Solar panels have really dropped in price. When I first started out with Rancho de Capera in 2004, we were paying almost $5 a watt for a panel and thought that was a good price. And now you can get panels down to 69 cents a watt. Solar panels have a very long life. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Solar panels like to be kept clean. If they get dirty, you lose a lot of power off of the solar panels. Solar panels can be put together wired in parallel or series. And the advantage of doing that is that you can take the solar controllers now can handle 150 volts. So you put 3 panels together, which are usually 36 volts apiece, and you're running 120, 130 volts. So you can use a small wire, because you have a lot of force going through your wire to go to your solar controller, and then your controller drops that voltage down to 12 volts or 24 volts or 48 volts that your system needs. This is a simple frame that I built for solar panels. It's a house made out of carriolas. Inexpensive to do, so you don't need to buy expensive frames. This is the panels at Rancho. We did the same on the beach. It was very interesting. Back in 2004, I saw a lot of people installing solar panels, at a 30-degree angle on the roof. Well, the 30-degree angle instructions in the panels comes from the United States. The sun is always south, so a 30-degree angle is exactly what you need for the sun in Arizona to hit your panel. In Panama, twice a year, the sun is directly overhead. And then in Panama, in June, the sun is north. And in Panama, 9 degrees north. And in Panama, in December, the sun is 23 degrees south. So in Panama, if you don't angle your panels, then having them flat is the best way. And I put a 5-degree tilt on the panels going to the east, and thus the rain runs off of the panel pretty much mostly. And I do east because we usually have more sun in the morning than we do in the rainy afternoon. And interestingly enough, when I came up with track the panels, so in December have the panels 23 degrees south, and in June have the panels 9 degrees north, we got a 15% increase in power out of the system because we're directing the panels more directly at the angle of the sun. I have a huge list of resources, and that'll be on the web page that I have. This is the system I put in at Rancho. This is the solar panels. Some of them are behind me. These are solar controllers that I have in. These are inverters that were put in the system. Rancho has a house, and then Rancho has 5 houses and a yoga studio in it, and a swimming pool. So there's a fair amount of electricity that it used. These batteries are industrial batteries, lead acid. That's it. Any questions? Any questions? Nobody has a question? Okay. Yes?
I've noticed in the Casa de Baterías down here nearby.
I was asked a question about Casa de Batteries and answered it in a way that I didn't like. Casa de Batteries has provided excellent service for me for my car batteries and checking my car out. They have been terrific. They are also a great place to get distilled water. In fact, the only place I know that you can get distilled water if you still have lead acid batteries.
A friend went into Casa de Batteries to ask about solar and said that the people didn't seem to be too up to speed on solar. So that's all the input I have about Casa de Batteries. So check them out and maybe ask a manager if you're interested in solar.